I'm Adam, I'm an orthopaedic trainee in Ireland. I'm originally from Egypt. I'm interested in longevity and sports. Very few people at my age or at my level of academia are as athletic. It's hard to balance health and your work so well. Running is overrated.
Cardiologists will come for you.
Powerlifting is peak. The quality of research has gone down significantly and it just becomes numbers. I think medical school is too easy.
Oh my God.
I think it needs to be much harder.
How do you do your work-life balance?
I think what keeps me going is
Welcome to the channel, Script.
Hello.
How are you, Adam?
Good, good. How are you?
Which one's my camera? I think it's that one. Welcome to the channel, Script, where we channel our energy into learning new things and strip away negative misconceptions.
I was wondering what it means.
You were wondering what it means?
Yes.
I'm going to say it slower. Welcome to the channel. So I'm calling the channel, Script.
Okay.
Did you know that?
No. I saw it, but I didn't know why.
Okay, that's the name of
There
the
we go.
YouTube channel, it's the name of the brand, and hopefully one day they're going to come to it. The channel strip, where we channel our energy into learning new things. And the strip part of the channel strip is strip away negative misconceptions.
Cool, cool. All right, kick us off.
Take us off. First question, what is your government name?
My government name, that's a complex one.
I always like to start with the government name because people have all sorts of names for all sorts of reasons. But the government one is like the official one on the official documents.
So it's Adam, and then the last name is really hard. Don't try to pronounce it. It's Abdul Munaim. But I go,
hard.
yeah.
Abdul Munaim.
Everyone asks me, how do you pronounce it? And it's a very long ABDELMONEIM.
Oh, it's one word.
Yeah, it's one word.
Oh, I thought it was two.
No. It's a hard name.
Okay.
It's a hard name.
Okay. It's not that hard. Abdul Munaim. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do a compilation video where I'm saying all my guests' names so far.
Okay.
And Abdul Munaim.
Yeah, there you go.
Okie dokie. So, is it just the one name you have? Just Adam?
Yeah, I changed my name before, but it's a very long story, but that's my name now.
Okay. Are you interested in talking about it?
No. Very long story.
Very long story. Not for today.
Not for today.
Okay. Or maybe for off camera.
Maybe.
Maybe. Do you know what? Why don't you tell everybody how we met?
So we met 2 years ago in Tala Hospital.
Yeah.
Favour was my second intern
Okay.
when I was doing my CSD or core surgical training in Tala. And orthopaedics, she had the unfortunate role of being my intern. And it was being an orthopedic intern is a very tough job, really. But I think we have it soft in Tala.
You think so?
Yeah, definitely. Like compared to other hospitals, we had it very soft. But that's where we met, and then we kind of, I suppose, talked about other things like progression and career training, building your CV. And I think you were having a little bit of a debate about what you wanted to do and what you wanted to specialize in, and
I'm still having another debate. That hasn't necessarily gone anywhere.
finding a work-life balance, I guess.
Yeah. That still hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a cool story. And here we are. It took the better part of like 18 months to get a date that both of us can...
Yes, I am extremely busy, and I am sorry.
Don't apologize.
Yeah, I'm
In
very
fairness, we did get a date last year at some point.
Yes.
And then I cancelled.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
Because I was in a really bad headspace. What was going on with me?
I can't blame you, it's okay.
I can't remember what was going on, but I was not in a good place. And I thought to myself, shooting is not a good idea right now.
Yeah.
It was a big deal for me to say no.
Yeah.
Because like it was so hard to get you, and I felt like I wasn't being professional by canceling.
No, don't worry about it. Like, I mean, everyone, it's just the nature of work, and people have things, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna jump on to the next part of this. Okay.
Oh God.
One for you, one for me?
Oh no. Oh God. I didn't know it's 5 pages.
I also did, do you know what? My guy who was trying to do this for me,
Yeah.
he's on holidays, I asked him for an A3
Yeah.
to like put it
The
on.
big one, yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't do it properly, so I walked to the shop and they were like, oh no, we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it'd be hard to read. It'd be hard to read. You can put it up somewhere maybe and on the video in the corner, and people can go through it then.
Yeah. Or we'll take photos of it later and figure out a way. But
yeah.
So this is, you didn't realize it was 5 pages?
I guess so, but I update it every now and then, so it's hard. I haven't seen it like this before.
It's all on like computer, right?
Yeah.
Is it shocking to see?
I guess it looks like a lot of work, you know.
Did you say it looks like a lot of work?
Yeah. I guess it's looking back at a few years of work, but anyways.
Are you proud of yourself?
I guess not really.
Not really.
No, because I don't know. Like I don't feel like I would be proud of myself when I feel like I've reached where I meant to reach, or something that is something to be proud of by my own standards. So I guess not really.
So whose standards is this 5 pages worth of information?
I don't know, not me anyways. It's on the way, it's steps. These are steps towards where I want to be.
Okay, you're gonna have to break it down to me. Because I feel like 5, by the way guys, this is like 5 pages worth of like small print. This isn't like size 12 Roman fonts, like this is small print. How are you like, you filled 5 A4 pages with information that you're not proud of?
It's steps. Like
Unpack
it's steps.
that to me.
Yeah, it's steps. Like some people would do half the stuff and they'd be proud. Some people would do much more than this and they'd be not proud. It just depends on where you are relative to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. For myself anyways, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there slowly.
But is it possible to be proud of what you've achieved so far?
I guess so. Like I think any of the stuff in isolation is not incredible. Like it is like it's stuff that people can talk about, but I think if it's anything I would be proud of is the fact that I'm able to do a lot of different things simultaneously, and I think that's probably the most challenging part of what I do. So for example, like I don't actually need this because I know this very well.
You don't know?
I don't need this because I know it very well.
Well obviously it's your life.
Yeah, so I guess at the moment, right? At the moment I am about halfway through my orthopedic surgical training.
Okay.
I'm doing 2 very academic, challenging 3-year masters in top 10 universities, which are my 2nd and 3rd masters. I'm in the middle of PhD applications. I'm doing research both nationally and internationally. I'm reviewing for a number of journals, Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery, Bone and Joint Journal, and I guess I'm trying to be healthy while I do it in some way. I think maybe these things in isolation, nothing spectacular, but I think doing all of these things combined at the same time could be challenging, or it could be the thing where I suppose I excel at, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's in a nutshell, so that's where I am now.
Okay. Well, you may not think it is, but I personally feel like it is spectacular. I actually think that each item is spectacular, and then I think that in combination, it's absolutely. And the reason why I feel confident saying that is, I'll tell the story of how I actually found the CV.
Oh yeah?
Do you know the story of how I found your CV?
Tell me.
Okay, so obviously he's my SHO at the time. You're a reg now, aren't you?
SBR, yeah.
SBR. Mr. Fancy. So he was my SHO at the time, which means I was the most junior member of the team.
Yeah.
That was my 2nd job ever as a doctor.
Yes.
I was printing the list for the team for the next morning.
Yes.
And I'm looking for the list to print, and I stumbled upon. You must have sent your CV to print it. I don't know. Was I?
Oh, I put it. Yeah. Everyone has a folder on the computer, and I had it there. I think.
So I stumbled upon the CV by accident. And I opened it up and I nearly had a heart attack. I was like, I was like my 2nd job in. So like, also I was thinking about going to camera applications and so I'm thinking I need to, like my CV is basically, I finished school. That was the totality of my CV at that stage. Then I opened 5 pages worth. And then I was like, whoa, is this like, and also mind you, you're an SPR now. You were an SHO then. So how many years out of school were you when I had met you?
2 years or 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
You were 2 years out of school when I met you.
Or 3 years actually. Yeah.
You're more or less, you're pretty much where I am now.
Yes.
And my CV still doesn't look like this. Just to put things into perspective.
Yeah.
And I would not describe myself as someone who's lazy.
Yeah. I would say I have a philosophy that I want to this competition. I want to be so far beyond the competition that there's no question of
Skill.
my demand, I suppose. Not my skill. It's very hard to put your skill on a piece of paper. Usually that's what people say about you, but it's who you are on paper. I want it to be someone who is unrejectable, if that makes sense. That the competition is far enough that there's no competition, if that makes sense. If there's a question of whether or not you're good enough, there's no question. You're not for me.
Okay, question for you. Where does that come from?
It's a good question. I know that you want to talk about motivation and stuff. I'll say it like this, right? Why is motivation not a big factor for you when you wake up to go to work? Why is it less of a factor when you wake up to go to work, whether you're motivated or not?
Okay, I want you to break the fourth wall and ask that camera that question. Exact same question. Then I'm gonna answer it. This is your camera.
Yeah. Okay, I guess for you, why are you less worried about how motivated you are when you wake up to go to work, and motivation much more, it becomes a critical factor when you're thinking about things that are optional. So say stuff like going to the gym, or stuff like taking extra courses when you're already very busy, or getting yourself involved with things that you don't necessarily need to. I think that's where people look at motivation and try to find reasons to do stuff. Whereby when it comes to the stuff that has critical consequences, or stuff that you're responsible for example, if you don't go to work, you could lose your job. If you're not getting paid, you're responsible for. And people don't really seek motivation in those circumstances. They seek motivation when they're doing things they perceive as things that are optional. And for me, I don't see most of the things that I do as optional, if that makes sense. So I get less involved with the idea of motivation and things that I must accomplish, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna answer your question, but before I do, I'm gonna give you a question, only because I think I'm gonna forget it. But my question to you are you in a position where you've built your life so that you're only doing things that you naturally would be motivated to do anyway?
Not really. Like I'd say this, right? I'd say that people that have the perception of, it depends again on what you want, it depends on what your goals are in life. If you have the perception that you can get away with not doing as much, you'll probably be less keen on getting involved yourself with stuff that are difficult to do. For me, I want something beyond security. I want to be someone who is not only, not someone who's essential, or someone who's in high demand, so that I don't have to ever even consider the thought of being redundant or replaceable. My focus a lot is on being irreplaceable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't know if you answered the question though.
Ask me again.
Okay, so my question was, you're essentially pursuing excellence.
Yeah.
Is how I would summarize what you've said so far.
Yeah.
And the motivation is you want to be irreplaceable.
Again, I don't consider it motivation. I don't think of this as an option. I don't need motivation I don't need motivation.
So dedication is a word for you then?
I'd say discipline maybe, or
discipline and dedication.
A combination of discipline, fear, and awareness maybe.
Okay. I'm gonna hold all of that and I'm gonna just hold it there and pause it.
Okay.
I'm gonna attempt to answer the question.
Yeah.
And I think to remind myself, the question was, why is it that I get up in the morning and I don't have, or I feel the need to have motivation?
No, why is motivation less of a factor when you're waking up to go to work? It's more of something that you just do, whereby when it comes to you being on the couch and thinking of going to the gym, you need motivation then. Why do you feel like you need to be inspired in those optional scenarios or situations that you perceive as optional?
Okay.
That was the question.
I would say that for me right now, it would be immaturity.
Okay.
Immaturity, because a mature response would be, go to the gym is something, as a doctor, I know this is important for my longevity, for my life.
Yeah.
That forget my fitness goal or how I want to look in the mirror. I should go to the gym 3 times a week because that is the medical recommendation, right? And I should just turn up to the gym, without a need for motivation, because I happen to know as a matter of fact that it's good for my cardiovascular system, it's good for my bone health, and it's good for, I know all these stuff from a headspace point of view.
Yeah.
And so why don't I just turn up and do the thing? I don't necessarily have that military headspace where I'm like, I know the right thing, therefore I should do the thing.
Yeah.
And I would say it's probably, I'm going to change my answer. First I said it was a lack of maturity, which is probably still true. To some regard, I'm not being an adult in my own life, not doing the thing I'm supposed to do simply because I know it to be true. But on the flip side, there's a concept that I've been reflecting on recently, which is pressure.
Okay.
And the sources of pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of my source of pressure all my life, all the way through, has been self-inflicted. No one ever sat me down and said, a lot of Nigerian kids would actually have that experience where their parents verbalized, I want you to be a doctor.
Okay.
My mom did not give me that. In fact, when I failed the league, well, not failed the league, when I didn't get enough points and I said I was going to do it again, she literally begged me to just do science and just be okay with that.
Yeah.
She has never been one to like unnecessarily push me. And maybe that's because she realized that I'm a very driven kid regardless, and maybe she was trying to balance that out and pull me back a little bit. But every form of pressure that I feel right now in my life is self-inflicted. No one's telling me to do anything. I don't have to do. I'm at a point in my life now where I don't have to do anything. Everything I do is purely by choice. My calendar is oversubscribed to the max, purely by choice. I'm trying to. I was saying to someone recently, actually I put up on my WhatsApp story, I just ran to my WhatsApp story, and I was like, I'm in phase 2 construction. Phase 1 for me was actually getting that security, be a doctor. I wanted to do it. A lot of my motivation was because I was told in secondary school, you're not going to get the points. And honestly, I think a part of my brain just doesn't function well with no. I'm actually trying to unlearn that now and go, you can tell me no, and I can decide to prove you wrong if I want to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
But I think 14-year-old me took that and said, hell no, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do. And I think I ran with that, and I wanted to be a doctor very hard, very bad. And I have no regrets.
Yeah.
And honestly, I do it all again. But right now, I'm in phase 2 construction mode, where I'm trying to like get this other aspect of me up and running, because I feel like I have so much creative potential.
Right.
And I don't think medicine gives me an opportunity to be creative.
Right.
I'm not sure if I've answered your question. I just went on a rant there.
You've brought up a lot of really good points. What I would say is that the first part you said is maturity. I don't know if it's maturity, maybe discipline. So think of yourself sitting in the couch after work and you're tired. Why would you want to go to the gym? It's the obvious answer to relax and stay home and recover. There's a lot of things you can use to rationalize that make you stay and relax. I think the 2 or 3 things that force me to go is a combination of discipline, a concept of this is weakness, and I suppose it's humanity. You're only like you're a mammal, you're an animal. An animal wants to rest once it's tired. It's hard to go against your biology. Your reptile brain tells you to relax and sit down and recover because you're aware of what's coming the next day. You're doing more work the next day. You know that when you're going to go exercise or whatever it is, this applies to anything. This applies to taking a master's or doing a PhD or anything that's extra. You realize the effort that is going to require and the amount of strain and maybe pain that you have to go through to accomplish those things. It's hard to convince your reptile brain or your very primal brain to do things against your biology. But again, this is why I kind of used to be more of a fan of David Goggins, but not anymore. He's not, he looks at things, people are not robots, right? You can't just tell someone to overcome these things. You have to structure your life in a way where these things happen more automatically. And it's less of just like waking up and going to work, these things just happen with time. It's less of it's not something you have to think about or bring yourself to be motivated about. If there's a question, there's no question. If there's a question of, should I go to the gym? You're probably not going to go to the gym. It should not be an option, if that makes sense.
You should build up your lifestyle to do the thing you're going to do.
Yeah, and your routine, I guess, if that makes sense. There's a few books that we can talk about later that talk about these things that are very useful.
But that's kind of what I was asking you earlier when I was kind of like, it sounds to me like two things. One, you build habits and routines that allows you to do so much because you're not fighting your instinct the whole time. You're
Yeah.
just doing the thing that you've scheduled in, right? That's a
Yeah,
habit.
yeah.
But also, on the flip side to that, it sounds to me like you're also doing things that you love. Because it's very hard to do this many things in a field that you genuinely despise. And I think that there's an element of building up your life to a point where, okay, I'll give myself as an example. Going to the gym for me at the moment, shout out to Back to Basics. I should have done that ages ago. But everybody here is fantastic. And
Yeah.
shout out to him for letting me use the space. I turn up to my class here, 5:30.
Okay.
I do the morning slots, 5:30 to
Wow.
6:15. So I'm up at 5 o'clock. I drive down and I do my session. I don't have to think, like my routine is fairly locked down.
Okay.
I come in 3 times a week. I'm trying to push it now to come, like they do training blocks. I'm aiming to do like 6 days in a week. That does not work.
Yeah.
Mostly because of my schedule, but at minimum, I'm in here 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I do more. I don't really think about it anymore. It's like, I get up and I go to the gym. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
And that took a bit of time to get to that point, but we got there eventually. The other area of my life where I'm like, okay, then I go to work, I come back from work, and then I use the word grind, which is like talking to my editor, shooting content, scripting content, planning content, sending emails, trying to book the next. Like there's a lot of like planning that's involving like getting guests to come on.
Yeah.
So much behind the scenes into just pure administrative work to this is insane. Then I'm trying to study for my MRCPIs. I'm trying to like write music, which is something I'm trying to stay on top of, go to my piano classes, do my piano homework, do my, like, there's a lot. And that's why I'm saying I'm in like phase 2 construction where I'm trying to like build my skill level to a certain point because big term, I want to write music for Disney. I want to see my music in the cinemas.
Fair enough.
To be able to do that, I need to get to a certain skill point that I know I can, to be honest with you, I know I can write for music today. I could do that today. I know that I have the skill set already because I'm very intuitive with music.
Okay.
However, I'm trying to like get the paperwork to back that up.
Credentials. Yeah.
Purely because, like yourself, I want it to be no questionable. You know, I don't want it to be like they're doing me a favor.
Sure.
I want them to be like, okay, she's intuitive, but she's got the paperwork to back it up too.
Sure.
Because I'm going to be competing against people who went to music school.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be like, I don't want any other composer out there. I'm sure that's not the case. This is all nonsense in my own brain. This may not even be true. But I don't want, say I landed my dream gig where I'm writing a piece of music for Disney's next show.
Okay.
And there's a composer at home who went to music school, did a master's in music, did a PhD in music, and then there's this YouTuber who got seen by some random executive person and got the job. I don't want them to feel in any way sort of like shoulder rubbed. Again, I shouldn't care about this imaginary person, but I want to be able to also go, yeah, as much as I'm a doctor who is a YouTuber and who's good at music intuitively, I also have a couple of letters to my name in that sphere that justifies, or not even justifies, but validates me landing this gig. So that's what's in my head.
I got you.
But can you not see though that in every way that I work hard, I have fashioned my life in such a way that I genuinely am only doing the things I love. I do not hate my job. I do not hate medicine. I certainly don't hate music. I don't hate being a YouTuber. So it's not that hard to work hard.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't know if I would agree with me saying that I love what I do.
Okay, tell me about that.
I don't see it as I don't see this stuff as an option. What would happen to you if you failed medical school?
Well, I would repeat it till I
So say you failed, say you kept
I did fail some modules, and then I had to.
Say you kept failing and you weren't able to progress. What would happen to you then?
That would crush my world. I took out a loan to go to med school.
What would happen then?
Well, I would have to get another job and pay off the loan and move on with my life.
And then what are you gonna do? What
I
are you
don't
gonna
know, do
work
science, I guess. That'd be sickening though.
It would be, wouldn't it?
It would be freaking sickening. I couldn't imagine a world where I wasn't a doctor.
Who do you think you'd be responsible for?
Me. Oh, so who would be responsible for my failure?
No, who would you be responsible for, say, in 20 years or 10 years?
My kids, I suppose. That's the only people.
So your kids, potentially your parents, potentially a lot of other stuff. Potentially you'd be losing out on a life or a lifestyle that you wanted that you're never going to get because of your failure.
Can I pause you?
Yeah.
The way I see myself.
Yeah.
How I wake up in the morning right now. Like right now, I'm currently so broke. It's crazy. But that's... crazy how broke I am. But that's because I'm spending my money in ways that some would say is crazy. Like, why am I spending so much? Why do I spend almost the entirety of my salary on like all of this stuff?
Yeah.
It's because I have 0% doubt. I have 0% doubt that I'm going to be the person I ever dreamed that I'm going to be. Like, this is an easy investment for me. I so much believe in what I'm doing that it's of no consequence because I know I'm going to be this mega rich trillionaire. I happen to know this as a matter of fact. This is just, it's just a loading type thing. I'm like in the construction phase. So for me, medicine is not the thing that's going to give me wealth.
All I hear, go get the money, so I go get it. Hate means I do something right, so I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him, yeah, I'ma let him.
Okay, is your goal wealth?
Yes.
Okay.
Goodness gracious me, I'm trying to be rich.
That's a simple enough goal, but how many people do you think are so certain of themselves that they're going to be trillionaires?
I'm sure loads. A lot of people have
How many of
self-confidence.
them do you think succeed?
Not that many. We're talking about the 1.1%.
Why do you think that is?
Because the 0.1%, I've been thinking about this, the Elon Musk of these world. I realized recently, I said to myself, I actually need to go back to the 14-year-old me. Because I have therapized myself into like this balanced human being who like doesn't feel the need to prove a point. At this phase of my life, I need to bring back that energy again and be obsessed with my, I was about to say obsessed with myself, but obsessed with my creative, to be confident in my creative like outlook. I need to hear people tell me no and literally prove them wrong, because I think it's that type of headspace that built Elon Musk, for example. If he ever listened to anyone telling he couldn't do a thing, he wouldn't be where he is today. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that he has like 16 companies under him, like simultaneously. That type of headspace, that type of like grind, it doesn't come from the type of people who accept no's and accept that, God, geez, I'm wrecked today, I can't really do much, I have to sleep. It just doesn't come from that. It comes from an obscene amount of, one, self-confidence, and two, ability to get up and keep going.
If I were to say one statement, I would say that the quality of your life is solely determined by how much suffering and how much you're able to sacrifice.
Unfortunately.
I think it's the how much suffering and how much sacrifice you're able to perform and overcome is the single most determinant of how good your quality of life is going to be. I think the vast majority of people that have the ideology that they're going to succeed fail.
Wow.
Vast majority. And that's reality, because there isn't that many Elon Musks. And there's a lot of people that think they're going to be Elon Musks, and they're not. And you don't know their names because they failed. And failure is a very common thing. Failure is much more common than success. And I don't know if Elon Musk has the ideology that he's undefeatable or he's destined to surpass other people. I don't know. I obviously don't know him, but I would think it's the awareness of the likelihood of failure and the fear that pushes you away from that. So if you think you're going to be, so take an average person, say in the Midwest US, an average person, they have ideas, they have goals at 14 or 15, right? How many of those things do you think come to fruition?
Like, how many people?
No, how many people, say how many people who have those ideas actually attain their goals?
I'm going to say it's probably less than 1%. Less than 1%. I mean, the wealth of this world is held by less than 1%.
So if you have that awareness, if you think that your chance of failure is 99%, okay, compared to all the other people that exist, you have a 99% of failure. Think of trying to fly a plane into a 1% gap between a 99% wall. How hard is that? How much work do you have to put in to accomplish that? If you're someone who is so assured of yourself that you're going to fly that plane into that gap, you're going to crash. If you're aware of the 99% wall and chance of failure, this awareness with appropriate foresight and work will get you through that gap, but it's very difficult. Success is not an easy thing. Success is not an assured thing. Success does not, for me at least, does not come from a place where you're sure you're going to succeed. It comes from an awareness that most people don't succeed. And it comes from an awareness that someone else is working harder than you. And you can bet your ass, almost no matter who you are, someone is working harder than you. And they're more likely to fly their plane through that gap than you are.
But you know what I say to people, and I believe this. I've not met that person just yet.
Exactly, and you might never meet them, but you know for sure
that they exist.
Yeah, someone works harder than you.
Yeah. I am yet to find someone
who
works harder than me. But maybe I actually have. My bad.
So
maybe it's you. Maybe you work harder than me. Honest to God, maybe you do. Maybe you do. But I think that I work a lot. I work more than I don't. In fact, I find it really hard to not work. That's a genuine problem.
Do you think that there's so take last week. How much time were you idle?
My God, let me tell you how. let me tell you how bad. Let me tell you how bad this is. One of my friends, Olive, can testify to this. I was in the depths of exams, studying for part 2. I wasn't functioning anymore. I was so tired that the study was pointless.
Yeah.
So I said to her, "I'm gonna go take a nap."
Yeah.
Turn off. Because I do that a lot.
I love naps.
I sleep just to reset, and to me, it's like a brand new day.
Yeah.
Because
I love
your head, it's like, do you know what? If the computer's not working, you turn it off and on.
Yeah.
That's how I use sleep. Shut down the brain and turn it back on again.
I'm the same.
I said to her, I'm going to go for a nap. Get up and study. I am not kidding you, Adam. I put my head down on the bed. I slept, I think, for maybe 15 minutes. And God sees my heart. I thought I'd been asleep for an hour.
Yeah.
When I came out of the room, she was like, "What just happened?" I was like, "Oh, I napped." She was like, "No, you didn't, Favour. You were in there for 15 minutes." I was like, "What?" Because I turned off my phone, I didn't have a concept of time. My problem is not work, which is why I wanted to talk about the work-life balance thing. I have no problem with work. Work is a natural concept for me. I breathe, live, eat, work. It's on repeat. Last week, how many times was I idle? Bro, I am sleeping and dreaming of my stuff, bro. It's possibly, I was so worried about my inability to shut down, I got the ADHD screening. So, to answer your question, how much times was I idle last week? I cannot tell you. Turning off is my problem.
Fair enough. I get what you mean. I'll give you one example before I go into the work-life balance stuff. I used to go to, when I was in medical school, so I suppose I'll briefly go, maybe we'll go into why I picked orthopaedics later, but when I was in medical school, especially in the latter years, I used to go to the library at maybe 6:45.
Okay.
The library opened at 6:50, 6:55. I would go in, be the first person in. I would sit in the one chair every single day. And if ever I'm late for any reason and the chair is taken by someone else, I leave. I don't stay in the library or the building. I feel like I suppose I can't focus, but I feel like I've failed.
Well.
And I used to leave after everyone else who I used to perceive as my competition has left. And that is me at my worst. That is not healthy. I would not recommend that to people. But again, when we go into the work-life balance stuff, you'll see that I'm very unbalanced in the opposite direction. I don't know if that's, obviously it's not the best thing I wouldn't recommend this for people, but it's that concept of someone else is working harder than you used to be very difficult for me to swallow.
Sounds like pride.
Huh?
Sounds like pride.
I wouldn't call it pride. I would call it maybe fear, a combination of fear and discipline. And part of it as well is I felt as though, I don't know if this is like ego, but I felt as though I have the potential to work harder.
Pride, ego.
Maybe, they're close, but it's not that I am proud of this, like definitely in retrospect, I was not in a good space, but
most things are often identified in retrospect, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But I think the concept of understanding and being aware of success is difficult to achieve and working towards that's the thing that governs my life. And a second portion of it is that if I were to summarize my personality or who I am in one statement, it would be work harder now and have an easier life later, rather than have an easy life now and suffer later?
Question.
Yeah,
You're not gonna like it.
tell me.
What if you die?
It's a very good point. So I thought about this stuff all the time, and actually I was recently in a session where surgeons were talking about their lives. There's a surgeon who had trained for a very long time, was an excellent surgeon, very well liked, very skilled, and then something happened to them, and they could have lost their life basically, and they would have put in 4 years of, or so say high school, then medical school, then research, then masters, and years of training, and all for nothing. It's very obvious, and I'll give you another scarier question. What if you make it to where you want to be, or where you think you want to be, and then you've lost your youth? You've passed out on your youth, you're now 35, 40, and you are where you want to be, but then you've lost your 20s, you've lost your early 30s, you're now older and you've lost your youth. It's very hard to value that. For me, I suppose everyone, it depends on your goal, but for me, having a much easier late 30s is worthwhile having a difficult 20s. It's a good question. It could happen at any point.
Because I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You, on reflection, are not even proud of this.
Not yet, no.
Okay, but like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
True.
You have to come to terms with the fact that what if you die before you reach the point where you're proud?
It's unlikely. It's possible.
Possible, but unlikely. Look,
unlikely.
I tell you some of my philosophies, okay? And these philosophies are new.
Okay.
I have a friend of mine, shout out to Joy. I'm going to call her Joy E. She's well aware that I talk about her all the time. Probably not impressed that I talk about her on camera. She's my mentor in many ways. I was trying so hard to make her my therapist, because she's a therapist, but she said no to that. Anyway, we've been talking about this concept of holding things in tension.
Okay.
Where like, here's one thing, here's another thing, and you pull them like two extremes, and you're trying to like balance them.
Yes.
Okay? I have a lot of philosophies.
Yes.
But most of those philosophies are not good for me.
Okay.
I would certainly put myself in the category of insomnia, anxiety, definitely not depression for sure. I'm like a really, really happy person.
Okay.
But like, I'm genuinely a happy person. Baseline, happiness is where I float.
Okay.
So now sometimes I dip really low really quickly, and I think that I've come to realize that shocks people.
Okay.
Because they only know me at this level, and then to see me go this low so quickly, it's like for them it would take them 3-4 months to be that low. For me, I can get that low pretty quickly.
Okay.
And in the same flip, I can be back up to my level 100 quite quickly too. So I do swing between extremes, and only in my adult years have I realized why that's shocking to people from an outside perspective. To me, it's not, because I'm just doing me.
Yeah.
But I can see why, if you think someone is so full of life, and then a week later they're in the depths of what looks like severe depression, I can see why that's really concerning.
That sounds volatile.
It is volatile.
Yeah.
It's very volatile. It's not, in a way, it's not okay.
Yeah.
But hence why I'm currently in therapy. But my point being, I have a lot of philosophies that I've come to realize they're not serving me. They're not healthy philosophies. They're not good philosophies. As you said during your talk, I would highly not recommend anybody think the way I think, to be very honest with you, because I don't think it's life-giving.
Yeah.
Now, my new philosophies are philosophies that I'm finding hard to truly, I'm going to say, believe.
Okay.
On one level, I believe them when I say them out loud. They sound very nice.
Okay.
And healthy and good places to be. But on the other hand, I'm finding it hard to let go of my old me, shall I say. And you're probably thinking, what are you talking about, Favour? So I really like the concept you said about like 99% of people fail. And if you think about it that way, you're the 1% trying to fit in. And if you think about it that way, you're more likely to succeed. Because essentially what that sounds like to me is realize the fair. I think there's a whole book on this that I've never read. See the fair and do it anyway. That book I never read, but I've been aware of it since my childhood. And I definitely read summaries of it.
Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think that's the concept you're trying to. Fear is one of the most limiting things in certain regards, but also fear can be a fantastic motivation tool.
Yeah.
And it's certainly been a tool that's gotten me up to here, for sure. I mean, the fear of not achieving the goal is such a
Definitely.
powerful drive.
Agreed.
And it's gotten me to this point.
Yeah.
However, it comes with a lot of baggage, insomnia, panic attacks, quite a lot of stuff. Like sometimes I am in a creative space in my head, and my heart rate increases. If you're in the same room with me, it's very bizarre. I can see why people panic about me. It's a very bizarre concept to see, because somebody is sitting down at rest, and then they're having a full-blown panic attack. And if you try to unpack why, it's because they had an idea. It's craziness. There's nothing healthy about that. Highly do not recommend. So my new philosophy is, I am guaranteed success, even if I don't work. And you might say, what do you mean? I mean that I now start to think about myself in a different light. Is there someone out there working harder than me? 1000% there is. I might even have met them. You might be the first person that I actually categorically can agree with that has like proof that they work, if not harder than me, definitely as hard. No one in my life right now works as hard as me. And I think it's probably a cocky point that I look down on people in a way, and I'm working on that because it's not healthy. But I just think that the reason why I'm going to be successful is not because of my ability to work. It's simply intrinsically because of who I am, the energy. And this might start to sound like woofly, airspacey type stuff to you, but to me it's more like, I really love the word energy, and that's part of my welcome to the chance where we channel our energy. I think I'm going to be successful not just because of my hard work, and I think that's an element to my success in the future, but I think it's actually going to be down to who I am, the energy I put out there, the forces I put out there, the fact that I can attract people, inspire people, will be, and has already started to turn out to be one of the most powerful tools I will ever have in this life, is going to be my ability to bring people together. My ability to get people to want to see me to be successful.
Okay.
Because what that does is it flips everything upside down. And it means you can maybe not work less. Because I find right now, I have way more people on my team accelerating the likelihood of me being successful. For example, I currently have like 200 and something followers. Most people with 200 followers do not have a team. It's just like they cannot afford one, because what the hell is that about? I'm only able to do that because of my job. Grateful for it, because I can afford to have a budget that I can spend on what is a potential nothingness. This could be nothing. I could maybe never hit anything. I'm okay with that. I'm happy seeing my creative work put out there. But my point is, the fact that I can get somebody else on board means that I'm increasing the likelihood, if managed correctly, of me being successful, at least faster anyway. Now, I'm attempting to force myself to come into a place of rest where I can actually attempt to rest. Because, for example, I've started this thing that, again, I'm failing miserably. I've started for a long time, and I've yet to actually lock this down, where I'm trying to take Sundays off. Now, that's a combination of me having to work Sunday shifts. And I think that me switching careers, but I'm not ready to say on camera. I think we said it earlier, but I'm going to edit that out. Switching careers slightly is going to put me in a position where my job is actually just Monday to Friday. And I think that's going to do wonders to my work-life balance. And I will be able to I'm trying to be disciplined about rest, because I'm in a headspace now where I'm thinking rest is actually one of the single most productive things I can do. It's going to accelerate my output if done effectively, because if I can effectively shut down for 24 hours, then I can't do math. 6 by 24 is, I don't know.
Did I say I'm horrible?
I'm worse. So whatever amount of hours that 6 days is, I'm going to be the equivalent of a machine. Because if I've rested effectively for 24 hours, the other 6 days, I expect myself to be on a super level. Because I'm trying to tell myself now, I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm trying to tell my brain, productivity is only as good as rest. I can only, where's that block on? We had a block here. Those blocks there. I can only stand on a foundation of effective sleep, nutrition, and headspace.
We should definitely talk about all those things.
Yeah, I feel like if I can build on this, if I can get to a point where I sleep 8 hours a day, which I don't. I'm running on 3-4 hours, not by choice, by the way. It's the most frustrating thing to want to sleep and not sleep.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it's part of why I cancelled last year because I was in that insomnia thing again, and honestly, it does tough stuff to my mood that I can't even explain. Like it just frustrates.
I completely get you.
Nothing frustrates me more.
Sleep is very important. The one part of what you said that I really agree with is that people have different strengths.
Okay.
I know people that are not classically academic or what people would consider as intelligent in terms of progression that are very successful in their own right. Like for example, I don't want to name specific people, but it's very smart to play to your strengths.
Absolutely.
For example, I feel like I'm not a very good conversationalist and I'm not good at socializing. I'm not a people person. So I stay as far away from that as possible. And
interesting that me and you still got on very well.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like I can talk about specific things that I'm into.
Okay.
But outside of those things, it's difficult for me. I cannot make small talk, for example. It's very challenging for me to speak to people in general. So what I do, what I focus on is what I'm good at. I'm good at studying, working for long periods of time, and being time effective and efficient and being able to multitask. So I play to my strengths, but if your strength is not that, there's no point in trying to follow my same pathway because we're going to have very different results if you try to do that, if that makes sense.
Reflect with me on what I said about like success. My philosophy that success is now going to happen before me because of who I am and less because of what I do. Would you agree or disagree?
There's people that have terminal conditions that believe that they will get better without treatment. Things that will not improve without treatment because of different things. So people that believe that, drinking tea is going to heal their bone or broken bone. If whatever you do does not coincide with a greater amount of productivity and efficiency, you're not going to get where you want to be. No matter what perception you have. If your perception, so say for example, this is very common, like athletes do.
So I'm going to pause you and just repeat that statement. If whatever you do does not coincide with a greater amount of output, finish the sentence?
Or productivity and efficiency, you're not going to get to where you want to be.
So basically you're saying believe what you want, but if that doesn't make you put out more stuff.
So there's athletes that do hypnosis. Okay. I don't know if you know this, it's a very famous story. Mike Tyson used to get hypnotized that he's a champion and he's never going to fail.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, that's really funny.
Yeah, it is very funny. It's actually, he was hypnotized as a teenager, like when he was 14 or 15. Yeah, he has like a
that's
very long
thing.
Shit. This is actually very common, like sports psychology and sport hypnosis is very common for athletes. If whatever you want to do, if it gets you more productive, fine. If you think you're going to fly and you jump off a mountain, gravity is going to reconcile that idea very quickly. If you think you're going to be very successful and you don't work, you're going to fail. If you're afraid for your life and that's what makes you work, that's fine. Whatever it is that is suited to your personality to get you to function effectively, that's what you should do.
Okay.
For me, I'm fueled by a mixture of anxiety, fear, ambition, and competitiveness. That's me.
No, that sounds good.
It doesn't sound good, however, if it is anything to go by, it works for me.
But you don't like your CV.
I don't, but I understand that it's something that very few people my age have accomplished, but for me, it is not good enough yet. These are all steps towards where I want to be.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear. I actually hear you loud and clear. I think fundamentally we're similar people.
Okay.
We are people who, and that's not shocking by the way. Most doctors are weirdos by every standard of their word.
Yeah.
Most doctors know that they're signing up to a vocation. Most people know that they're going to study for essentially the rest of their life.
Yeah.
If you're signing up to be a doctor, you're kind of saying, I'm going to be an atypical human being.
I agree, especially if you do surgery.
Right. Especially if you do surgery.
Yeah.
So it's not weird that we have a similar outlook, but I think what fuels us is definitely very different. And at least what I want to fuel me going forward, it's going to sound very up in the air, but I want to be fueled by rest.
Yeah.
I want to be fueled by love.
Okay.
And I want to be fueled, honestly, if I could actually just balance rest and love, like you said, whatever works, works, right? I do think I'm gonna triple. I think I'm gonna be more. I think I'm gonna 7 times my output.
I'm just gonna tell you one thing, right? Just to be the boring pragmatist.
Okay.
The only thing that matters of how productive you are is your bottom line. What are you able to do in a unit time? It doesn't matter if
in a unit of time.
Yeah. So how much you're able to do per unit time. So how effective are you? It doesn't matter if you do that through love or hating. So a lot of people do this stuff because they hate their competition. There's a lot of stuff, whatever it is that fuels you, the only thing that matters, the only measurable thing is your bottom line. If you do it because you love what you do, that's fine. If you do it because of any reason, it's fine. It doesn't matter. The only thing is how much you're able to accomplish.
But why should be?
Again, it depends on this is my metric. So performance is my metric. It doesn't, if your metric is...
Honestly, my metric, or at least the metric I want it to be, is numbers. I want my metric to be money.
That's fine. So
that may not
some
be
people,
healthy, but that's
some
what I
people
care
are
about.
materialistic, they want money. Some people are looking for happiness. I suppose I'm looking for everyone is looking for happiness.
You know why I'm laughing?
Eventually.
Do you know why I'm laughing?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you said that, you know what came to my mind? I was like, fuck happiness. Happiness doesn't pay the bills.
Happiness is the bottom line. Happiness is...
You just said the bottom line is output. Which one is it? Adam, which one is it?
So I guess these are all these things, money, performance, ownership of things, productivity, whatever it is. I think ultimately what it boils down to is Maslow's hierarchy of contentness. So
it's a hierarchy of need, I thought.
Of need, but like in terms of self-actualization to reach being content. And for most people, for most animals, that metric is happiness. For most people.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you because I have to.
Tell me.
I have to interrupt you. What if you die?
Anyone can die at any point.
Do you know why that's a really important question?
It's an irrelevant question. Why is that relevant?
Is that irrelevant?
So you could be a billionaire and die. You could be poor and die. You could be happy and die. You could be miserable and die. There's no point. You're debating something that could happen. So this is like this. What if I'm gonna come do this interview and I crash the car on the way? What if I eat something and I choke? There's no point in questioning.
Let me tell you why I think that question is important.
Go ahead.
Because if the bottom line, you said that for most mammals, am I correct? Did you say most mammals, the bottom line is happiness? Most people, the bottom line is some form of happiness, right?
For most people.
Okay. As much as I said, bleep the word happiness, as much as I said that, the truth is a lot of rich people do die miserable and,
True.
Kill themselves with drugs. But
there's very few exceptions to this rule. There's people that have an awareness of the greater... Some people are able to achieve things that most people aren't able to. For example, some people would sacrifice their happiness in order to achieve something extraordinary. But these people are very few and far in between. And even then, some people argue they're still doing whatever it is to get happiness in the end. It's very hard to know what drives people. I think most people, it would be safe to assume that most people want to be happy and want to have a life that they're comfortable in.
But here's why I feel like I keep coming back to the what if you die question.
Yeah.
As much as I'm confident that I'll hit the goal,
Okay.
I don't know when I'm gonna die.
Okay.
And awareness is something you brought up ages ago. If I accept now, there's a couple of facts that I'm working on. Fact one, I will be successful. That's a fact that I'm working with. I'm running with this idea in my mind that, in fact, I'm already successful, it just hasn't manifested yet. That's a concept that I'm holding in my brain, right? If I'm living in that space where I'm already this trillionaire in charge of a bazillion companies, shooting at movies left, right, and center, doing everything and then some, changing the HSE, changing the world, fixing the healthcare across the world, whatever it is I want to do, I don't even know yet. I'm sure I'll come up with new stuff every day. What if I've already achieved those things and it just hasn't manifested yet? I'm basically living my life in reverse. It's why I'm trying to document. I'm trying to have it'll be so interesting to watch this interview back in 20 odd years and think how many different ways my perspective has changed. But what I'm saying to myself is if all of that statements are true, if that already is my reality, I'm just not living in that alternate universe just yet. The next step is I don't have to be anxious anymore because I've already achieved it in my head anyway, I've already achieved it. And so the awareness then is we have enough data right now about people who are unbelievably wealthy. And we already know that the money doesn't make them happy. So again, if I hold intention the concept of I'm already successful, and I pull that here and I kind of go, money's not going to make me happy, then I need to ask myself, where will my contentment come from? And so to me then, every single day is a day that I need to be happy. Why? Because I could die at any stage, and I don't want to have died and not been. That's a miserable life. I'm so sorry. That's a miserable life. And also, since every goal I've achieved has left me bewildered. Some people achieve a goal and they kind of go, thumbs up. I don't know what people think in their minds, but in my mind, once I've achieved the goal, it somehow has turned out to be a very deflating experience where I'm like, okay, done the thing, what now? And it's just, I find that I'm so much more excited by the idea of achieving something than I am of actually achieving it. And once achieved, it doesn't give me that high. The high is actually chasing it. So if I spend the rest of my life chasing a new thing, I really have to be happy eventually. So my thing now is, why don't I just be happy right now? And my big why is, I could die at any stage, and I don't want to have, I'm only 27. I don't want 27 years worth of unhappiness because I'm waiting to be satisfied when I'm 40. Fuck that. I'm so sorry.
That's a very good question. That's a really good question. So you're wondering, what's the point if you're always chasing the carrot? What's the goal? What's your ultimate goal if you're not going to be happy getting there? What's the ultimate goal? What if you don't get there in the end? It's a very good question.
And what if I do get there, but it doesn't feel as amazing as I thought it would?
This is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is people who are, I suppose, your one metric of success is money, so I'll use that.
Okay.
So there's people who are below the poverty line who in their head are also trillionaires, but reality doesn't coincide with that. So I work by reality. I work by where I am now in reality, how much have I done, and I work by very tangible things. So what have I accomplished? What's my numbers so far? And then if, your question is, what's the point of chasing something if you're not happy doing that? I don't know. I suppose my bias is that eventually I think I'm going to reach a point where I'm satisfied. And I think I have an idea where that point is. Very possible that I'll reach that point and I won't be happy either. I won't be happy with my CV or won't feel content. I suppose that's a very realistic idea. Unlikely as well, because there will be a point where there's nothing else to achieve. Like academically, I'm nearly at the end of the tail in terms of what someone is able to do in terms of the world of academics. And then once I reach that, there's nothing else. I've already reached the summit. There's no more climbing that I can possibly do. I think that's the point. Maybe when I reach the summit, I'll be happy. But I know very well how high I am in terms of how far I've gone across the pathway to the summit. In reality, I don't think to myself, oh, I'm at the summit when I'm at the base of the mountain. There's no point. That doesn't help you.
Yeah, because you live in reality. You live in reality. I certainly don't live in reality, and I'm okay with not living in reality. But I don't know. You haven't answered my question, and I think you're just not going to. And I think that's okay. We have different perspectives.
Yeah.
Because I'll leave that with you because I think there's no point beating up this bush.
Yeah.
You should
I've
probably
heard that
think
so many
about
times.
it. It doesn't bother you. The concept of dying without having been happy. That doesn't bother you in any way?
I don't know if I'm unhappy. I'm just.
You're neutral. You don't care.
I'm neutral.
It's bizarre to me.
I'm neutral. Yeah.
And there must be people. You can't be alone. There's loads of people out there who have a ton of stuff, and it doesn't do anything to them.
Yeah, I guess maybe I don't know. Like I don't think this stuff is the stuff that's going to make me happy. I think maybe I'll be happy. There's a lot of things. Maybe I'll be happy when I have like a family around me that I think is going well. I don't know what's ultimately going to give me that ultimate idea of happiness. There's no point in speculating, but I think I've been working towards something since I was maybe 12 or so. That I think will make me happy, if that makes sense.
Okay, we're going to move on because there's no point.
Yeah.
We differ on this, and I'm starting to think maybe this is a female thing. No, honestly, because if you look at, I was reading, was it a reading or a video? I was watching a video. I put like a little screen thing of what that video was. My editor sent it to me, and it was this guy, very, very famous, well-spoken man. I'm just not good at names, and he was talking about how he'd worked with a bunch of women, and every time a woman reaches like the pinnacle of her career, in his experience anyway, and he was like, people kept coming for him. Anyway.
Oh, is it? It's one of two people probably. It's either Professor Satgat in Toronto, or is it Jordan Peterson? No.
I think it was Peterson. It was definitely Peterson. And he said that in his experience when he worked with women, once they reached the top of their career, they always kind of looked around and said, "Well, this is rather pointless. I want kids." And no, seriously. And
Actually,
it was Peterson. He's like, "I want to go home and I want to have a family." And do you know what? I was watching that video going 110%. Again, because I don't live in my reality and I already know that I'm going to be successful, I already know that that might not move. It's just fun doing this stuff. It's fun watching the numbers grow. It might not give me any, I already know I definitely want a family, I definitely want kids, I definitely want all that extra stuff. And I think that it might just be a female thing because you're very like, yeah, whatever, neutral, yeah, whatever. You don't seem to care about the concept of happiness. And I think that might be a manly life look. I think I'll be bold and just say what I think, and people can comment. I just think maybe for women there's a certain level of like goals that you can hit where it just won't move the needle anymore. It just won't. It won't move the needle, and something else has to do it for you. And maybe just because you're a guy, you just can't seem to.
I would say I want family as well. Like I'd say that's a very human goal.
Yeah.
To want family and kids for most people. Maybe like my worst thing is that my foresight is often blinding to what's happening at the moment. I always think 10 years in the future, so I have a very thorough plan in terms of what I'm going to do the next few years, and often I'm not present in the moment, but that's the sacrifice I've made. I would say the thing that has allowed me to accomplish so much is that I've planned all of this stuff many years in advance, but again the downside of it is that I'm thinking, what do I have to do this upcoming week or month or year, rather than experiencing what's happening now.
Yeah,
that's the trade-off, I guess.
I'm actually in this. I do the same thing. I do the same thing, but I think the choices I make, or at least the choices I've been making recently, has been thinking about the fact that I'm actually going to want a family.
Yeah.
I don't want to have
Likewise,
reached.
yeah.
I don't want to have reached this like pinnacle of success and then not actually have that. So
I guess so. Yeah.
I need to make trade-offs today to be able to have that tomorrow, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's the trade-off I'm making now. Like I don't know if you want to go into the lifestyle stuff.
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
So there's like 3 parts in life for me, anyways, that I'm trying to balance, which are my health, my career progression / academia / medicine, and social life. Mm-hmm. And the first thing to go for me every time is social life. I'd say my social life is where I've made the most sacrifices. I have gone so deep into academia and my health that it's like a triangle. You can only have
so many things at once.
One side of the triangle, like two angles or vertices of the triangle. So you can't have all 3. You just choose where you're going to give up on stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. And definitely I've given up significantly on the social side of things to be able to accomplish these things. Mm-hmm. The last thing to go for me is the academia. So sleep and then academia. But generally the studying, work stuff never goes. Sleep is the last thing to go.
When you say last thing to go, what do you mean by that?
So I suppose if I were to sacrifice things, it'll be people first of all. So I would talk less.
That's so funny. My dude said I'm going to sacrifice people.
So I'd talk less to people. I would socialize less. I would go out less. So say I got busy, that's what would happen. I would socialize less, spend less time with people, speak less, and then it would go into, I suppose, the stuff that I used to relax. So my entertainment, stuff like, things that de-stress me, like watching things, etc. And then it will go into my health. So it'll be healthy eating. I'd start eating unhealthy things, snacking, etc. And then it'll go into being very heavy into stimulants like caffeine, energy drinks, etc. And then sleep goes. Once sleep goes, I have nothing left. So sleep is the last to go for me.
That's so interesting because for me, the first to go is sleep.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm obsessed with sleep. So sleep is critical. Like I have a very strict bedtime at 9:45. I sleep at 9:45 no matter what, unless I can't help it, obviously. And then academia. So all of these things go away first.
Define academia. You mean like writing papers, reading papers?
So academia slash work slash progression in career. So like my CV stuff, like doing so the masters, the research, the hospital stuff. That's the last thing to go.
Can I just say how much I hate this crack?
The hospital stuff.
Oh my goodness, career progression stuff is killing me slowly.
I don't know. Like I don't necessarily mind it.
Should I tell you what I hate about it?
Tell me, yeah.
It's not the doing of it.
Yeah.
Research is rather interesting. Collecting data, putting together documents, it's why I feel like I'll succeed very well in that space.
Research.
Yeah, because in the other space that I was telling about. I think I'll do very well because my mind doesn't mind that. I don't mind connecting dots and kind of going, this million of people don't necessarily do well. Why don't they do well? Think about it. Okay, should we chuck money at this problem? Should we chuck how do we solve this problem? That's of no, it doesn't bother me. What bothers me though is the requirement to have a job and then do that on the side as a requirement to progress.
I understand.
It bothers me deeply because I'm like, what you guys have done now is taken something that by itself is very interesting. The collection of that, it's what medicine is. It's
completely agreed.
It's why we all do what we do. Like if somebody else didn't collect this data, we wouldn't know for a fact that paracetamol works in a particular circumstance. Do you know what I mean? Like, opioids are very good for research is fundamental. If you're a doctor who doesn't believe in research, I actually question what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's the basis of what we do. However, they've made progression in the medical space so tightly linked to research that they've actually watered the quality, watered the love for it.
I completely agree. It's really, really challenging. It's very hard to do. I think medicine, especially surgery, again, I'm very biased. It's very unlike any other career path where people often just go to work, do the work, come home. That's it.
That's it.
I go to work. While at work, I'm working. Apart from work, I'm doing the master's stuff and research and the reviews and studying, and then I come home and I do other stuff.
And
there's no.
You don't like.
I would say at any time I'm multitasking multiple things, and I suppose I knew this is the life I chose going into it. The one issue I have with it is that, especially in the current way training programs work in Ireland and the UK, it's the numbers game. So the quality of research has gone down significantly, and it just becomes numbers. And people publish stuff that is not worthwhile. Like you would go to meetings and it's just trash everywhere. Stuff that is not answering important questions is stuff that is not, clinic changing or clinical decision changing. Everyone just wants to publish papers and numbers, whereby good quality research in terms of stuff that has high methodological rigor, actual novelty, actual equipoise. This stuff is very rare. And
what's equipoise now?
Equipoise is a lack of knowledge. So for example, if you were to ask me, I broke my tibia, should I have a nail or a plate? If I don't know that, then there's genuine equipoise. I don't know the answer to that question. If there is equipoise, then you have a genuine question, you have a gap in the knowledge that you need to address. However, a lot of the stuff that's published now is recycled data, very few things that are clinic changing or stuff that changes what actually happens in medicine. And it's a shame. This is for me the biggest travesty in research, that everything is now numbers, very few actual important questions being asked. And again, people can't answer these important questions if you're working 12, 14-hour days. It's not possible to do that and do research at the same time effectively.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that needs to be addressed. I think more and more people are now taking time out of surgery and training to do research full time.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't know how much
they're answering the important questions.
Yeah, I think the UK is definitely much better at this than Ireland. They have a lot more research infrastructure. They have research units. They have research trial centers. There's research nurses in every hospital. There's a lot of infrastructure and supervision and interest. Ireland is different. Ireland is much more focused on surgical training for you. I think surgical training in Ireland is much, much better than the UK. I think the caliber of trainees that finish the scheme here is much more well-rounded, and they're much better than the UK trainees, to be honest with you. I think it's the downside of it is that what they give up instead is the academia. The UK is much more academic.
Yeah, but you say they give it up, but they still expect it though.
They expect it in a different way.
Yeah, see, what I think is happening is they want this. Here's Ireland. Ireland knows that they're pumping out high quality doctors. They know that they're well trained.
Yeah.
They know that we spend money and time and clinical skills.
Yeah.
Straight up from like med school. Like I think the Limericks, I didn't have a pleasant experience in Limerick. However, my clinical knowledge was well-rounded. They taught us very, very well. They pumped out high-quality doctors. The problem, though, is because they know that you are, by nature of being a doctor, are going to be good at the basics, taking a history. Taking a history and presenting a case, coming up with a differential, and treating your patient. They know that you can do a job because they more or less trained very, very well to be able to do the job.
Yeah.
Now, they want to, I think, I could be wrong, because I've never spoken to a consultant about this to figure out if it's true. You're higher up than me, maybe you can educate me, but I don't think that these people in the higher powers kind of go, because they know they have high quality doctors, and they know that they want them to progress to become consultants so they can eventually, provide a service for the whole country. I think that they're competing on an international level, kind of saying to themselves, I think these guys probably sit in a big room somewhere and go, well, we want to look very good in comparison to the UK and say Sweden and all these other European countries. So we're going to expect our trainees to have done research. We're going to expect that, for neurology, pediatric neurology, one of the fellows that I was talking to kind of said, well, at this stage, it's more or less a given fact that if you're going to become a pediatric neurologist, you're going to have a PhD. It's just like, it's like a bleep on the CV. If you don't have it, no one's even having a conversation with you about getting a post. And I just think that that's happening because they know that most SPRs coming out of the pediatric training scheme know how to do a neurology history, know how to diagnose most neurological things, know how to treat these patients. They're not worried about the standard of medicine. What they're worried about more is about the standard of what it takes to become a consultant. And I just think, how did we get so lost in medicine that cannot be good enough? I really believe that a consultant should be chosen based off their clinical skills, their acumen, their ability to differential diagnose and diagnose the patient. And I know that some of that is, without a doubt, has to be due to, and I see my own consultants do this, where literally before seeing a patient, they're reading papers and double checking the genetics. And I know that research is important, but I think that the requirement for research, for example, look at my fellow, this particular guy. I don't think we've talked very well, I don't think he'll be offended for me to say, not that I'm disclosing who he is anyway, to say that it's making him more miserable by the day. It's affecting, like, I feel, if we're not careful, the quality of doctor he eventually will be, because if you take away someone's joy for long enough, it would actually eventually have a knock-on effect on their clinical skills, because they'll turn up to work just so unhappy that they might miss something because they're not necessarily doing their job from the best ability, because they're so strained from the fact that they're simultaneously doing a whole PhD. Nobody else does this. Most other jobs out there, engineers, lawyers, they do their study, right? And I'm not trying to say that they don't work hard, they especially the lawyers. They study, they do their membership exams, they pass, but that's it then. They're not expected to constantly, continually study, and publish papers. I think it to be two worlds. I think you should have to do some level of research. Has to be a requirement. You need to understand how to read a paper, how to take knowledge. That's all a part of your clinical skills, I believe. However, this thing where a PhD is a requirement for a job, to me is crazy. Everybody else out there gets a 2-1 in any degree and can hold a job. And by the way, some of my friends in tech, they make more money than me. Work 9 to 5, Monday to Thursday, finish at 3 p.m. on a Friday, have a company car, have houses at 27. That's the reality of some of my friend groups. And then there's me, exam after PhD paper. I'm doing studies and I'm like, I don't even know do I actually care? Yes, I do, but you guys are killing me slowly because I finish work at 9 p.m. Then I have to go home and sit on Excel paper. And
I think the reason
it's too much for one human. Why are we accepting this? We need to
I'll
start
tell you,
challenging these thoughts.
I think the problem with the PhD thing is not really the training programs, it's that there's the supply to demand ratio is off. So for example, if you finish your training program and whatever, you will get a job. It might not be where you want, it might not be close to where your house is, your family. If you want options or choice, you have to outcompete your competition. Why would they hire you over someone that has a PhD? The reason why this has become the standard, especially in Dublin, is because everyone else has it. So if you want the job that you want, you have to be the most suitable person for it. This competition.
By the way, we also don't have enough doctors. So like, they could relax. Like, I just feel like, what's the trade-off? Like, you're telling me that we need to outcompete every other doctor to get the single job you want. But on the same side, we actually don't have enough physical human doctors. Like, we need way more doctors on the ground than there is.
There is, I would agree with you. There's a balance. So there's something called standard setting, right?
Okay, tell me about that.
You have to, how are you going to get more doctors? Enroll more people. To enroll more people, you're going to include people that would have not been included initially. So to do that, you're going to lower the standard of the people that you're enrolling. So there's a very fine balance between hiring too many people and lowering your standards, because that will be associated with worse outcomes for patients, and that's going to be associated with patients doing less or doing worse in hospitals.
Do you know what? I don't disagree with that. I think you definitely need a good doctor so that you don't kill people. That's facts.
Yeah.
However, let's go back to the fact that I genuinely believe that Ireland pumps out high quality doctors. I think we do a good job of teaching. I don't know your experience, but
I would think that's right. Do you think all doctors are equal caliber?
of course not, but I think that the schools are trying their best. And one of the things that we could do is, he's laughing as he teaches at the moment. One of the things that we could do is just open up more spaces in schools, no? It wouldn't solve the problem today, but it will solve it in 4 years' time and every 4 years after that.
So again, you're going to run into the same problem. So everyone is on a bell curve. Okay, within the bell curve, there's people that are underperforming normal performance or good performers. Okay, if you increase the amount of people that get into medical schools, you're lowering. I think medical school is too easy.
Oh my God.
I think it needs to be much harder.
What do you mean by that?
You're getting people into medical school that are going to be dealing with people's lives. And there's people in medical school that do not care.
I agree with you. However, let me tell you something else that I believe. I think it's the ones that care the most who are not getting in.
I'll tell you this, right? I think if
because it's the robots, the people who are clinical studiers who know how to get a high Leavenscert point, who are getting in. And that doesn't mean anything. Just because you're good at studying or your parents can afford to pump you the amount of grinds required to get you the points, doesn't mean you're a human being. And a lot of people who are human beings, who would be fantastic clinicians, are actually not even getting into med school because the points are too high. By the way, the education system is of no reflection to actual intelligence. Just because I can ream off a bunch of facts doesn't mean I'm intelligent. So it just means I can study.
Let me ask you something.
I don't know, bro.
Do you want to, you broke your hip. Do you want to be operated on by a very sweet doctor with bad hands? Or do you want to be operated on by a very technical doctor who's not as nice?
Okay, that's a very isolated question.
No, just answer that question.
Okay, of course I want to be operated on by an excellent physician.
So let's pause there.
Okay.
When it comes to these humans that you're talking
about.
These
humans. These humans! When it comes to humans.
How are you, the people that you're saying are not getting into medical school, even though they're compassionate, or there's a balance, right? So to get a good physician, you need someone who has the ability to do a lot of things. You need someone who cares, is conscientious.
I'm trying to interrupt your flow.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Let me interrupt your flow. There is a place for everybody. You're not going to like this statement. I think everybody could be a doctor. Because medicine is one of those fields, and being a doctor is such a varied word. You could be a doctor and never have used a stethoscope. You could be a doctor. Thank you. You don't. Look, the surgeons don't be caring. I remember my rotation. I would tell some of you guys the sodium level of 120. I remember. I'm not going to say you. One of them was like, okay, why are you telling me this? I don't care. Like, surgeons are known to not care about the medical stuff. But what I'm trying to say is, doctor is such a heavy word, and maybe that's something that as a people we need to unpack. Because how is it that a surgeon is a doctor? Pause for a second. Let me just break this down for people. A surgeon is a doctor. A public health guy who's behind the screen, who never sees any patients, physically anyway, who's on the phone, this man is also a doctor. A guy in some lab doing clinical research, he's a doctor. A guy behind a table on an Excel file doing just good old-fashioned paper research, he's a doctor. Your man who's a pediatrician, who's working with kids sitting on the floor and playing blocks and doing developmental checks, that person is a doctor. How is it that we're all doctors, yet we have very, 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 very varied skill sets? Look, I will never be successful in a theatre room. I can't even go left versus right. However, I am very good at kids. Look, I can tell you, I'm confident. I'm particularly, it's my thing, right? Kids are my thing. How is it that I would fail miserably in one field that has the title doctor, and then I would do extremely well in another field that has the title doctor, yet to get into that space, it's the same test? That's bonkers. That is bonkers. That's bonkers. We both have to sit the same leaving cert. We both have to get good points in HBAT or GAMSAT. How are you testing people with the same test, yet when they're done all this training, what they need to be good in their specialty is so varied? I do not have to be good with my hands whatsoever in my job.
Yeah, you're asking a very hard question. So
Guys, they need to fix the system.
You're asking how are we assessing people. So one of my masters is in surgical education at Imperial, and we talk about the stuff, the metrics of how do you assess someone's capability of doing a task. It's very difficult. It's very difficult because you're funneling people through the same pathway to do different things. So I'd say this, right? Adaptability is very important. Your ability to study large volumes of information. Part of it is memorization, but part of it is also being able to communicate the stuff in an exam, etc. Part of it is communication skills. I would say that the worst aspect of it is that there's people that are very book smart, that are very alien-like when speaking to patients.
Yeah.
And that's the most challenging part, but simultaneously, they could be very good surgeons. I think the amount of scrutiny you get to where you need to be should be higher depending on the risk of that role.
100%. Yeah.
So for example, surgery has to be very highly scrutinized because you're making millions of decisions. A case is millions of decisions. You have to know anatomy very well. You have to know communication very well, research very well. You have to be able to do. I think surgery adds a different level of difficulty.
Yeah, it's complex.
Because there's the addition of you need to become a good surgeon. You need good spatial awareness, good memory, good communication skills, good research skills. You have to be an effective leader. You have to be good with your hands. You have to have good proprioception. You have to be decisive. You have to have a very large amount of things that are very rare.
Mm-hmm.
That requires scrutiny. That's why generally the people that tend to pursue these things are much more scrutinized. You have to perform higher in exams, have a higher percentile, etc., which I think is important.
I don't disagree with that.
This is why I think when I say medical school should be harder, you're putting someone in a very powerful and important position, and I don't know if we get. I don't know. I suppose it's hard to say. I don't know if we get enough scrutiny because there's a lot of things you have to overcome to get to where you are. I just think when you're dealing with something so vulnerable and something so important as people's lives, you have to be an exceptional human being.
I fundamentally agree with you. My only thought process is defining fundamental human being. I just think the way the leave insert in this country is currently being tested, we're not picking up fundamental human beings. We're not. Yeah, there is a lot of fundamentally amazing kids set in the leave insert year in, year out who would make fantastic surgeons, fantastic ophthalmologists, fantastic gastroenterologist, whatever the subspecialty is, they would make great doctors if given the opportunity to, but they're not getting into medical school because the way we are tested and isn't testing their specific knowledge. Now, On the flip side, determination is something that you really have to have as a doctor. For example, I didn't get enough points. I sat the leaving cert again, still didn't get enough points. And then I said, I'll do the graduate entry route, right? And then I finally got in. I would say that in a way has formed a level of resilience that I 1000% need for this job, because goodness gracious, this job will test you, everything you've got. And I think in that process, I've built a certain amount of resilience that's definitely served me well. That being said though, I just think that you are speaking specifically to the needs of a surgeon. I cannot argue anything you just said. Nobody wants to read on the newspaper that some surgeon who wasn't well trained made an incision somewhere and killed someone, or gave them a debilitating life condition because they're unskilled. Nobody wants to read that. The first question is, how did they even get into the theater? I mean, we ask these questions all the time. How did this happen? Everybody is outrageously angry. Of course the surgeons need to be well trained, but on the flip side to that, maybe there's somebody else who could get into med school who doesn't necessarily need that skill set. And how do we get them in med school too? Because they're also needed. You're smiling.
I think everything should be harder.
Oh God.
I think when you're making decisions about healthcare, it doesn't matter even if you're not a surgeon, if you're making any decision that could affect someone's health, you don't have to be as exceptional, but you still have to be exceptional. You can't say get those other people in medical school that are less good because they can
less good at that thing.
Yeah, but
they're probably okay. For example, list out those skill sets again. I'm going to tell you what I feel like I have and what I don't have.
I have to remember now.
One of the things that you said that I feel like I don't have, spatial awareness. I don't think I have any of that. Like literally, like is that to define that would be like where to put things or
where things are relative to each other within space.
I don't think I have that at all as a skill set. I would say that's probably a true weakness, and that would probably have manifested in my inability to get enough points in the HBAT, because that would have been a type of testing where they test your ability to like put shapes together and things like that. Whereas something like communication skills, you're laughing again, I'll ask you why later. Something like communication skills, I think, you'd have to ask my seniors or people I work with. I think I'm pretty good at that. I think I'm pretty good at listening to a family speak. When I'm listening hard anyway, and listen really well and ask the right type of questions and kind of go, what's the true problem here? Or sitting with a child and figuring out what's actually the child's priority. Like, I just think that niche area of communication, would be something that I happen to notice because, like I said earlier, I got the ADHD screen. And one of the things on my report was that exceptionally good at communication. Like my reasoning skills apparently was like apparently because I don't really feel that way, far above that of the average. But like in the same document, it actually did say that my skills with numbers, for example, was far below the average person for my age. Like I happen to know that I'm shockingly bad at numbers. How do you hold that?
I'll say this, right? Do you know what standardized exams are?
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of standardized exams.
Okay, I'm not, but anyway, go on.
I'll tell you why. Because it takes a large number of people and puts them up against the same task that generally is unbiased and non-differentiating. So, for example, if you are someone who is I'll say this, right? Within a test, the more testing points that test has, the more fair it is because it covers a larger amount of information. However, say you're the world's best expert on nephrology and you go into an oral exam and you have an orthopedic case, you're going to fail. That doesn't mean that you're a failure of a doctor, that just means you're not exceptional at that thing. How do you globally assess a person's knowledge on everything? You have to have a lot of stuff tested, right? The more stuff you have tested, the more fair the test is going to be. That's what a standardized exam aims to do. So a standardized exam will test a very large amount of things. So for example, the US medical licensing exams, or USMLEs, so one of them is 280 questions and the other is 320 questions, I think. That tests a lot of information and it's completely random. You could be good in infectious diseases, microbiology, and nephrology, but be bad in hematology, oncology. You will not pass that test. You have to be good at everything, okay? And on that exam, all the higher scrutiny specialties, like neurosurgery, plastic surgery, orthopedic surgery, they're very high on the end of that. Why is that? Because these people must have not only the ability to retain a lot of information and have a lot of knowledge, but also comes with it a lot of other stuff like time management, resilience, the ability to be consistent in your work, the ability to put a lot of hours in, and that's the most fair way to test people. And you could say maybe you're not good in MCQs. Well, MCQs are just one way of assessing your ability to retain knowledge. They're the most fair because it takes away part of the memorization cuts. It takes in more reasoning, especially higher order thinking. But I think everything should be standardized exams. I think that's...
What do you think of interviews?
Interviews can be very... again, you're testing a very small subset of information. You're testing maybe 15 questions. And people often prepare those answers that might not be true. I think for an interview to be fair, it has to be very long and has to cover a very large amount of information. That's the only way it's fair. But again, it's hard. It's hard to test someone. It's hard to test someone through these things.
So what's your Masters of Education? Surgical education specifically.
Yeah. So that's an Imperial, and it focuses on...
I don't know, man. I feel like, I guess we need people like you to... And there's lots of minds like this who have structured their understanding of how medicine should be tested and how do we let people in the door. And ultimately, I know that the most important thing for these type of people, including yourself, is the patient at the other end. Nobody wants to let the type of person in that would end up killing someone. And that's probably like maybe the worst outcome, or giving them a lifelong debilitating condition. And I get that this needs to be well. It's just hard for me, I suppose, because I think at heart, I didn't want to use the word creative. I think at heart I'm softer towards maybe because it's my strengths, I'm softer towards the sides of life that just involve creative thinking and creative outlook, and I just feel like medicine doesn't appreciate that, and maybe I have a bone to pick against that or something.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't do medicine if you're the creative person. Maybe you should do the creative stuff.
Yeah,
like you don't need to be a creative person to treat a patient well.
No,
maybe
you're right,
maybe the reason why you're struggling so much and going against the flow is that you're in the wrong river.
Yeah, and I think that's
maybe you should move fields rather than try to change the field that you're in.
Yeah.
Medicine is about trying to give people good quality care while understanding that you're dealing with human beings. That requires a lot of devotion. It doesn't need a creative person. It needs, you have to be a creative person in problem solving. But you have to also be, again, it requires a tremendous amount of traits for someone to be a good doctor or a good surgeon. And you can't, I think, if anything, it should be more difficult to get into that position. I think the standard to get into surgery needs to be much higher than it is now. I think, I think you should have very high scrutiny when it comes to these things, not less, never less.
Okay.
Never less.
Sadly, I'm gonna say sadly, I agree with you. I think you've justified your position well. And I think that it's probably a case where I personally have a bone to pick with the fact that I've struggled so much.
Yeah, I mean, again, you should be aware, not that you should give up, but if you're 5'4" and you're trying to play in the NBA, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah.
Maybe you should play something else.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the wiser decision than not, and it's okay. And that's the thing. It's trying to decide when to walk away from something.
Yeah, I definitely think that medicine is very challenging, especially surgery. I think if we increase the scrutiny of the field. And I think a lot of things, again, I'm not a very balanced person. I think a lot of things should be harder than they are.
How do you do your work-life balance? Because you just said I'm not a very normal person. I don't even know what you mean by that.
I'm not very balanced in this, so my advice would be extremely biased.
Maybe don't give advice, just say what you do.
So I think what keeps me going is that I have a lot of force. I predominantly think in the future rather than the present. I'm very strict with my planning and I'm very strict with my time. what I do is that I try to schedule as much as I can and plan as much as I can. There's a very famous quote, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. You know, I think that if I foresee all of these things and plan for all of these things in the future, my chance of failure is much less. So for example, I use a combination of an app called Todoist and a calendar, and I plan everything far in advance and have timelines and schedules for a lot of different things, because that's the only way you're able to keep up with different things and schedule these things. Yeah. And you're going to have to sacrifice something. I chose to sacrifice social life.
I actually had a question.
Yeah.
If you don't want to talk about this, that's fine. We will edit the segment out. You comfortable talking about, like, because I happen to know you're married now, more or less.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did you talk a little bit about how you managed relationship? In this headspace of I schedule everything and I sacrifice this. And how did you manage to get to a point where someone was, no offense to your woman, but how did you get to a point where someone was willing to marry you? What did you sacrifice there?
I'll say this with great difficulty.
Okay. Shout out to her.
Yeah, it's not. You have to be with someone who's understanding. Don't date a doctor if you want someone who's available. Or don't. You have to be aware that the person who you're with has their own agenda, and you have to come from a place of understanding, or else it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to manage relationships in surgery or medicine, because not only is it very busy, but there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with it. People might have stuff that happens at work that they take back home. People do work at home. There's also no concept of
boundaries.
Exactly.
That's what I hate the most about my job. The fact that you can just text me on WhatsApp and go, this child is, I don't want to know. I clocked out like 2 hours ago.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you have to also think of the flip side of things. Have you ever been in a hospital before? Have you ever been a patient?
Gotcha, that's a great question. I remember when I was a patient, I had some serious anxiety.
Have you ever been in pain before? So I appreciate where you're coming from, and it's a if you're going into medicine, you're making a sacrifice. It's not like any other job where you have space. You're probably going to be involved in work to some degree, no matter where you are. And if you choose not to be, you should be prepared for surprises. So even at consultant level, say you operated on someone and they went home, and say they had a complication, and you're on holidays, if they come back to hospital,
you're gonna call.
Not only that, if you don't get a call and you come back, prepare for a surprise. There's different ways of handling this. There's compartmentalizers that try to separate things, and there's people that want to know about things all the time. So it depends on the type of person that you are. I haven't figured out myself yet. I don't mind getting emails or calls anytime, anywhere. That's who I am. Some people don't want, some people when they're with family, they don't want to get any emails, any calls. I'm okay with it. I probably, as I get older, will put more space between me and work. But if you go into medicine, prepare to live a lifestyle where you're not going to have space.
So this is a vocation for you?
I think so. I can't imagine myself, if I'm not, especially orthopedic surgery. If I'm not doing orthopedic surgery, I would quit medicine.
Okay, great question. Because if I wasn't doing peds, I'd quit medicine. But anyway, as a side note, why medicine?
Do you want the boring answer or the? It's easier to answer why orthopedic surgery, if that makes sense.
Okay, why orthopedic surgery?
So when I went to medical school, I wanted to do surgery for sure. I knew I wanted to do surgery. Specifically, I thought I wanted to do neurosurgery.
Okay.
I wanted to work with my hands. I have not horrible people skills, but people skills are not my strong suits.
Okay.
I saw what neurosurgery is like, and I said, this is not for me.
Okay.
And then in my second year of medical school, I was starting to think of, okay, what am I going to do? And then I was on Reddit one day, and I saw this post that says to become an orthopedic surgeon, your USMLE score and your step one score and your bench press combined have to be 500. I said, this is me. This is for me.
Yeah, is that why you put your exact scores on this?
Oh yeah, so I suppose...
Are you proud of that at the very least? You didn't have to put the score.
I suppose it's that I think the pretty high percentile. Like
oh my god, I really wish I could turn the cameras around. They're bench pressing.
They're
Oh no,
excited.
sorry. What are they doing?
Push-ups.
They're push-up. The two of them. They're distracted.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
So I think the one thing that makes me unique, I suppose, is that very few people at my age or at my level of academia in my career are as athletic. Some people are, but it's hard to balance health and your work so well. I think the only way to do it is to sacrifice on social life to a degree that most people are not able to. And stuff like alcohol, I barely drink. Like I would drink once a year.
I gave up recently. Shout out to me for that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff you have to give up to do this.
Yeah.
So my two passions are music and exercise. And I'm hopefully going to compete again in nationals of powerlifting soon.
So when did you get into powerlifting?
Second year medical.
Second year of medicine.
Yeah.
What's the story there? How did that happen?
Very long story, but in a nutshell, my philosophy about athletics in general is that I want to pick a sport that has high longevity, minimizes the amount of osteoarthritis or cartilage damage, low risk of injury, and can be packaged in a lifestyle that suits me. So I want to have high muscle mass, high bone mass going into old age, because I know 35 onwards, everyone, especially women, lose muscle mass and bone mass very, very quickly. And if you don't do a sport that maximizes those, you realize too late. A lot of people do stuff
what
like
age are we talking?
35 onwards.
Okay, so I still have time. I'm about,
So
I'm about 10 years to help myself.
a lot of people try to do stuff like running, and most people don't know running has a detrimental effect on your cartilage, gets you osteoarthritis faster, and they try to do this stuff to lose weight. Not a very effective way to lose weight either. And then with that, they lose their muscle mass and they lose bone mass, and they age very poorly. It's not a sport that has good longevity. A lot of people do stuff like CrossFit. Show me one natural athlete who's above 50 years of age who's doing CrossFit. Very few. Weightlifting, non-existent above 50. The only sport that does that is a sport that has controlled movements.
I'm gonna make you roll your eyes now, because we talked about this before.
Tell me.
I can't even say the word. Calisthenics. You hated it when we had this last
I don't
conversation.
hate it. It's just that it's very hard to progress.
Oh.
Doesn't have very good longevity, and it has what is called stepwise progression, not linear progression. So the difference between progression in an exercise has a big level of difficulty spike, and that is not compatible with progressive linear progression.
Why do you care about linear progression?
Because eventually, what's going to happen? So one day you're going to bench press. So what's the difference between a diamond push-up and a normal push-up?
Not a lot. Just in difficulty.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot.
Massive.
Yeah,
Massive. So the difficulty.
But in terms
spikes,
of muscle use, not that much.
Yeah, but difficulty spikes are much bigger.
Yeah.
Very hard to progress, and it does not have good longevity. People in their 80s and 70s, and there's an 86-year-old competitive powerlifter. Okay, there's not many sports that are able to do that, you know? So I think my cardio perspective is I do cardio that has low impact, that has steady state cardio, that does not interfere with your strength training. So stuff like ellipticals, cycling, walking, swimming is amazing. All this stuff is great. It doesn't wear out your joints. You can do it while doing the strength stuff. And then to do your powerlifting or strength stuff, do movements that are very controlled, safe, low risk of injury, and easy to progress and easy to program. So you can fine tune the weight that you lift as much as you want. You don't have to add a 20 kilo at a time. And it's very, very, very good for your longevity.
I just want to shout out Back to Basics again, because they actually do this very well. I'm going to interview them too sometime next year. But the way they build their program is rather scientific, and they really focus on the basics. That's why they're called Back to Basics. Like, it's all about, like, you know, progressive overload, technique. My goodness, they focus on technique, like making sure that every squat counts, and you're not just like down and up again. Like making sure like each squat is a highly technically correct squat. So they're very much, and I can't wait to talk to them.
This is a very tricky area. Like it's a very fine balance because especially now, science-based lifting is a very big thing.
Okay.
And this is there's something called analysis paralysis where you focus too much on technique and you're not adequately progressing. There has to be a level of anecdote and there has to be a level of bro science. It's a balance. If you're obsessed with your technique and you're progressing 1 kilogram a year, that's not good, even if your technique is perfect. You have to have apt or appropriate progression at your level. You can't be so focused on technique if you're not progressing adequately. There's a very fine balance. Definitely the science-based lifting stuff that's happening now, like what's his name, Jeff Lippard and stuff, Lippard. I'm not a very big fan of that. I'm someone who's more, if you're gonna lift, like they focus on eccentric portion of the lift, very slow eccentric portion, focus on the stretch. And
I would have thought someone who has his master's in sports.
No, so I didn't get as big as I am by doing the stuff.
Yeah.
Neither did they. Like all the stuff is very new.
Yeah.
The old school style of lifting and the anecdote of bro science and doing stuff that makes sense, like moving heavy weights and heavy loads, it works. It's worked forever. It's a balance. Like you don't want to be Ronnie Coleman where you get injured and you're now wheelchair bound.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Oh, you don't know? So Ronnie Coleman is probably the greatest power lifter of all time.
Right.
Bodybuilder of all time. And now he's got loads of injuries. He's had so many spinal surgeries. It's a balance. You don't want to be that.
What did he do wrong?
He trained too hard, too much, for too long, in a nutshell. But you don't want to be that. You don't want to be, I'm going to do a 3-second eccentric, flat handle cable rows with, you don't want to do the opposite of that.
Okay,
you know?
we're going to get you to show me all this stuff. Before we move location, and then that's it, we'll be done.
Yeah.
This has been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation. Just talk very briefly, or rather, very quickly, or whatever way you want to talk, on nutrition as a science, or not as a science, whatever you prefer.
In a nutshell, I think the most important thing to focus is that micronutrition is very underappreciated. Everyone should be aware of your micronutrition. So almost everyone is vitamin D deficient, especially if you're living in the northern hemisphere.
Go on, doctor. Doctors.
So I take very high dose vitamin D every day,
Really?
along with magnesium.
Jeez. I wasn't expecting that as the answer. I thought you were going to say protein.
No, that's macronutrition. So micronutrition first. So I suppose.
Why is that more important than macro?
So both are important. The reason why macro is less important is that there's enough awareness about macronutrition.
Right.
Everyone knows about it. Everyone knows about protein.
Yeah.
What I would say is that most people don't get enough protein. Like I take 1.3 grams per pound of my body weight. So I take around 220 grams of protein a day, which is a lot. But that's what I need to be at my size naturally.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you just now. Since lots of people know about macro, just tell us more about the macro.
Yeah, so I suppose vitamin D, omega-3s, green tea extract, a good multivitamin, probiotics, prebiotics, magnesium and zinc are all key. This is a very big conversation. Maybe I can talk about this for 2 hours maybe. Everyone should be taking a good multivitamin, a good omega-3. Green tea extract is optional. Everyone should be taking vitamin D, especially vitamin D with vitamin K. And everything you take should be independent third-party lab tested. So
Independently?
Third-party lab tested. So
What brands do you recommend?
So what I take now is I take Life Extension for my multivitamin, and I buy pure encapsulation magnesium and zinc. Doctor's Best has really good curcumin, which is also really important. I buy my omega-3 from the US, and I eat a lot of fish as well, which is very important. Like getting natural sources of the stuff is also equally as important. And then I suppose what I would say is that it's very important to monitor your health moving forward. Stuff like cholesterol, blood pressure, very important that you, especially for men, because most men have higher blood pressure. Very important to monitor this stuff as you get older.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
Why do you say, like, I didn't know the data for that.
Testosterone.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does testosterone affect your blood pressure?
So it affects your cholesterol and your blood pressure. So if someone who's natural starts taking steroids, especially testosterone or SARMs, often the first few things that go off is your liver function, your lipid profile, and your blood pressure. That's the very first things that go wrong.
With the guys who are taking all those steroids.
Yeah, so another thing I'd say is that don't, everyone you know is on steroids.
Yeah, you told me this before.
Everyone.
And I found that hard to accept.
Every athlete whose name you know is probably on steroids.
It's a big statement. You could get sued for that.
Yeah, everyone.
Well, you didn't say any names, so you can't get sued.
Every athlete whose name you know.
Are you on steroids?
No. I know it's hard to, everyone thinks I am, but I'm not.
Okay.
But like stuff like every actor you know who's in shape is on steroids. Every actor who's gotten in shape quickly is on steroids. Every fighter is on steroids. Every soccer player is on steroids.
Because that's just how to get in shape quickly?
No, so this is easy to understand. A lot of people competing for very high-paying jobs. A lot of people want that job. Everyone does everything they can, but few people excel in that. Part of that is talent. Part of that is being very disciplined, good sleep, good nutrition, good rest, and dedication to your field or your sport. And then everyone does that, and then some people take the extra step of steroids. Every bodybuilder is on steroid. Every Instagram influencer is on steroids.
You're very confident in this Usually medics don't like using we like to say... What's the likelihood? So say you know someone who's young... The likelihood ratio, statistics.
Say someone who's in exceptional shape, what's the likelihood? That they have perfect micronutrition, perfect macronutrition, perfect sleep, perfect training, perfect genetics, and I'm talking 1 in a million genetics, and they're on top of their other stuff, they're doing their other stuff like work, etc., or they're an average person on steroids. What's more likely? To be in exceptional shape.
Are you in exceptional shape?
According
to your own standards.
I'm exceptionally large. I wouldn't say that I'm in exceptional shape. I'm exceptionally large, I'd say.
Okay.
If I see someone my size, I would be very suspicious they're on steroids. It's very unlikely that someone has all of these things fine-tuned, and much more likely someone doesn't have them fine-tuned, and they're on steroids, especially your genetics.
What makes steroids so good at making you look amazing? What does, I know it's all this anabolic, I could go into the science, but what exactly does that? You take steroids and you work out and boom, you're 10 out of 10?
I'll tell you a very...
That's a very attractive concept.
There's a study that was done, I think, 2004, where they did MRIs on 4 groups of people.
Okay.
Sedentary people, as in not exercisers, that were taking steroids. Mm-hmm. Exercisers that were taking steroids. Mm-hmm. Natural people that are not exercising, and natural people that are
exercising.
The group that was not exercising, sedentary, and taking steroids made 8 times the amount of muscles as the people that are natural and exercising.
My goodness gracious me, that's big numbers.
So this is one aspect. Another aspect is that you get stronger way faster, and that's mostly due to recovery and training volume. So if you take steroids, you're able to train more frequently. The effect of your training is more palpable. You get much stronger, much faster, and you're able to train more. Okay, so there's another aspect of specifically some steroids increase things that are important in powerlifting and sports, such as aggression and focus. So there's a very famous steroid called Tren, which is a very potent, very toxic steroid that makes people much more aggressive, and that stuff is really important for powerlifting. The mindset of aggression and the mindset of focus is really important. So it's a big topic, but the important thing is that...
I can see why people do that then. Yeah. If it's going to give me 8 times my result.
Yeah, so it's very easy to jump into it, especially if you want quick, short-term results. 2 things I'd say is that as soon as you stop, they go away, and you're shortening your life significantly. And if your goal...
Do you want to die?
So if your goal is to look good in the short term and die young, and lose them once you stop, because once you start taking steroids, there's a vicious cycle. So I saw a video by a guy called Eric Bugenhagen, who you can look up. I was very close to starting steroids because I ranked first nationally in powerlifting when I competed, and I thought if I start taking steroids, I can be world's number 1. And then I thought, okay, I start taking steroids now, I get stronger, I get bigger, I get more lean, I get in better shape. and then I'll stop. I'll do a cycle. And then what happens inevitably is that you stop, you get smaller, you get weaker, you make less progression, and then you get depressed. And then you use the steroids again to get back where you were. And it keeps going over and over and over until there's no coming back.
What were you going to say about the video you watched? What did that video, did that make you want to start this?
No, so I was very close and then that thing made me stop. It's called Stay Natty by Eric Bugenhagen.
What did he say that made you?
That basically there's no one cycle. There's no, I'll do this for a time period and I'll stop and I'll be fine.
Isn't that all forms of addiction?
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. And the most important thing I would tell to your viewers in general is that if you follow someone on Instagram and they're in good shape, the chance of them being on steroids is extremely high.
So that tells me that we all need to stop comparing ourselves.
Yeah, compare yourself with yourself, but also be ambitious.
Yeah, because part of the reasons why we're all trying to be lean and fit is because of Instagram. My goodness, it is Instagram that's the problem. You see the girl who's like in perfect shape and you're like, God, I'd love to be there. Do you know? Steroids. Okay, I really want to go. Do you know why I want to go? Not because I'm not enjoying this conversation, but this, my back is not happy. Like the lack of support is doing my head.
Not a bench.
Honestly, but there's a few things here. The pregnant patient, why does my feet hurt? That study. Key highlight points for pregnant women right now, based off that study. Go on, give me an expert line.
It's not your fault.
Oh, bless. That's so funny. It's probably the cutest thing you said. I thought you were going to say, be stronger! Expand as to why it's not the pregnant woman's fault. Expand, I'm actually...
expand. Hormones, weight gain, edema. You're two people in one.
Yeah.
Not your fault.
Yeah.
Not your fault.
Okay, the effect of gender on lower limb kinematics and kinetics. Systematic review, what's that study about?
That's an ongoing study. Okay. That study is talking about the difference between men and women and how they move. And women are at much more risk of injury.
Because of how we move?
Yeah.
Is that because of pelvis shape?
So not only pelvis shape, movement of your knees and your hips, you're 5 times as likely to rupture your ACL, which is the most common sport injury. Okay. If you're a woman, because of how your knees move relative to your hips, how your core moves.
High heels, good or bad?
Horrible.
I know you were going to say that.
Horrible.
Top tips for women to help them not get injured?
Core training is really important. Okay. Don't do silly sports.
Calisthenics.
Yeah, do powerlifting. Just be careful of what you do, and I'd say at this point most personal trainers are awful. Do your own research. Read some books about how your body behaves and how your body progresses. There's a really good book on periodization by a guy called James Wilkin in 2011. Really good. 2001. There's really good books, like Starting Strength is a really good book.
I remember when I told you that I was getting a personal trainer and you gave out so much.
Most of them are do more harm than good, honestly. You're better off training yourself.
Will I tell you when I ripped my meniscus?
Yeah.
When I was in med school.
Yeah.
I was in a session with a trainer when that
most trainers are more harm than good. Yeah. I would avoid them if you can, unless you have an expert coach, and most of those are online.
The expert coaches?
Yeah.
Interesting, because I don't like the online stuff.
They're very good. Like obviously they're not ideal, but there's really good coaches in Ireland. I don't want to name specific people.
Why not?
I can, I guess. There's a really good pair of coaches called Sika Strength, S-I-K-A. They're very good. Yeah. Very good sources in Ireland are Clarence Kennedy.
Look at the camera so people can.
So Clarence Kennedy.
Go do that.
This is not in Ireland, but Chris Duffin. Juggernaut Strength has some really good videos.
Are these Irish people? Yeah.
No. So the Irish people are Sika Strength, Clarence Kennedy.
Okay.
These are the top two. Okay. And then internationally, there's Chris Duffin, who I'm a very big fan of. Ben Polak has a series of videos that are incredible, but there's loads of really good resources. Okay,
that's excellent, just because that's signed, approved and delivered by orthopaedic training, so I think it doesn't get better than that from a recommendation point of view. Okay, I'm doing like top 10 pieces of advice here.
Yeah.
Advice for pregnant women in exercising.
You can early trimester, I guess.
Okay.
Again, low impact stuff.
Okay.
Non-contact stuff for sure.
Okay.
It gets very challenging. I think the most important thing is prehabilitation. So getting very in shape before you get pregnant so that pregnancy is easier, and then afterwards.
Yeah. Obviously the answer is do not do this, but what would be the dangers of like steroids while pregnant for like female powerlifters? Is there data for that?
That's not a thing, I think.
Okay.
I've never heard of anyone doing that.
Okay, because they probably wouldn't be powerlifting while pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay. Rehabilitation and return to sport of women athletes, what was that about?
So I suppose female specific considerations for athletes that are injured and returning to sport, and a lot of it focuses on some of the stuff we talked about before. Your kinematics are different. Sport psychology is a very big factor, and your body behaves differently and heals differently. You can read the paper; it's really good. This paper was featured in a whatchamacallit, in a podcast.
Okay.
I think it's called the North American Society for Arthroscopic Surgeons.
Okay.
So it's a very good podcast.
Okay. We'll a lot of people might have felt like that we didn't go enough into the science. And maybe I could have gotten more out of you. I'll see what the comments are saying. I might bring you back because
maybe I think if anything I could talk a lot about longevity in sport and how to minimize your risk of injury and my philosophy around cartilage and cardio.
What is your philosophy around cartilage? I'll let you mention it.
Basically, in a nutshell, this is a very long conversation, but
it is, yeah, but
a lot of stuff that people do very commonly is very injurious to cartilage. Stuff like running, stuff like CrossFit, and people realize too late. Marathons, all the stuff is very injurious to joints.
Okay.
What I would say is that low impact stuff is probably the healthiest for you long term. And for people trying to lose weight, cardio alone is not the way to go, because you lose muscle mass, you lower your basal metabolic rate, you burn less calories. If you want to lose weight, if you want to burn more fuel, get a bigger engine, okay? Building muscle is extremely good. You burn more calories sitting down doing nothing, you burn more calories when you're exercising, and it is less boring than doing cardio non-stop, and it's more fun, it's more engaging, it's better for you. You don't lose the muscle mass, you don't lose the bone mass. If you're trying to lose weight, do a strength training program with a mixture of a healthy amount of low contact cardio, or low impact cardio, sorry.
Okay. Pediatric population, any expertise in that field? Comments, thoughts?
For athleticism, not particularly. Like, it's not you don't run into problems when you're young, you run into problems when you're
older, yeah.
And the trick is foresight, I guess.
Yeah. So like when you see kids, you're mostly seeing fractures.
Fractures and sometimes congenital stuff.
Yeah.
But again, kids are amazing. Kids remodel, kids heal very well. You don't run into problems when you're young.
Yeah. So top tips for people with kids in like getting them in a space where they can sort of like prepare them for an adult who is well aware of everything you've mentioned today.
Yeah, I suppose I don't have kids, so it's hard to say, but it's challenging for sure. Having this built as a lifestyle before you have kids definitely helps keeping it when you're older, when you have kids. There's a focus less. Like one of my close friends now has kids, and he used to be very prolific in powerlifting. He used to be on gear as well, which is steroids. The focus shifts from being optimized to doing what you can when you can, you know?
Yeah.
Because you have much less free time.
Yeah, of course. So no harm done to anyone who feels like they're not training as much as they feel like they would if they didn't have kids. Okay.
Yeah. So squat, bench, and deadlift are the movements.
Squat, bench, and deadlift. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 15 minutes because I'm wrecked. I don't know if you're wrecked.
I'm wrecked as well. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do 15 minutes max of you showing me squat, bench, and deadlift, and then we are done. Unless there's anything you want to say that you feel like really important stuff for the community to know that you haven't yet mentioned, even if it's like a one-liner, top 10, whatever. This is just your chance to spiel.
Everyone is on steroids.
Okay.
It's good. Didn't get that before.
I actually think that's a very important point to drive home because part of the anxiety with body image is because we're all looking at people who are clearly as we learned today, they're on steroids. So
running is overrated.
Running is overrated. That's a big one. Cardiologists will come for you.
And powerlifting is peak.
Powerlifting is peak?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to just say, it's okay. I'm going to say for the camera, everybody's on steroids. Powerlifting is peak and running is overrated. I don't know, I feel like that might be lines to get cancelled, but anyway, we'll have to wait and see. Excellent, excellent.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to stretch you back.
The best of max angle there. So,
Okay, so what are you trying to show us here?
just a deadlift.
Okay.
Let's go.
What was that now?
This
You-
is 60.
Yeah, but like, what are you showing us? Like, is this?
Oh, do you want me to show you that?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to show us. Like, what?
What I was gonna do is just do like a couple of sets from 60.
Okay,
to
okay,
150.
okay, cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So that was 60.